Buzz, babies, and welcome back to another episode of Blake's Buzz. And this week, I have a very talented writer. He's written for TV, he's written for DC, he's written for Marvel. He's got a great book from Vault called I Walk with Monsters. He's got a new one from TKO about witches in World War II. And he's now taking the comic book scene by storm with a satirical and quite pleasant endeavor called Con and On from Ahoy Comics. I've got Mr. Paul Cornell coming from across the pond here at Blake's Buzz. How are you doing today, sir?
Hello. I'm fine. I've never heard the words "quite pleasant endeavour" shouted in so passionate a fashion. Thank you so much. I could do with you around most of the time. Just introduce me to people. Hello. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. To start off, I was really excited because I have a cool story about you. Many years ago, when you wrote the Wolverine run where he loses his power, that I know a lot of nerds got mad at you about that. But I really dug it, and my dad and I were reading it together. So like I would pick up the comic and like I would read it, and then my dad would read it, and we kind of like, we used to go to like all the nerd movies and stuff together, and just kind of like, when I was a kid, he brought me like the Death of Superman trade paperback at school. He used to work at my school as the janitor. And so he never was really into comics, but he got me into comics, oddly enough. And anyway, so we were reading this book together, and we were both liking it. And he had a stroke. It was a minor stroke. We got lucky, but it messed with his vision. And so he has trouble reading now, kind of. So he doesn't read as much anymore, but that was just like kind of like a special deal for me. So when Superfan reached out and they were like, "Do you want to have Paul on about his new book?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't care about his new book, but like I do. It's a great book." But you like, you had no way of knowing this, but you had this like cool backstory with me and my dad and my nerdy endeavors, and I loved that Wolverine run, man.
That is so nice. Hearing stuff like that is actually the best thing about this job. And, you get to hear a story like that about once every 6 months or so, and it keeps you going. It's so good. It's so good. This is sort of what we do fiction for.
Yeah, well, that awesome. So see that this is how I like to do things. I like to start off with a strong intro and then build you up, and it's all downhill from here, man. I'm real sorry.
Well, we've got this emotional roller coaster to look forward to.
Exactly. Anything for ratings, right? But no, you're a great writer. I interviewed Sally a while back, and we talked about I Walk with Monsters too, which was
just one of the best artists.
She's so good, right? Yeah. Oh my God, so good. And that script, that story, just the way you dealt with trauma, right? And also, a very non-typical revenge tale, right? Like when it was so interesting, like the way you did those characters and how, they're so propelled by revenge, and then to really play with that notion of like how hard it is to pull the trigger, right? When you get to that point, you don't see that a lot, right? Usually revenge tales, we glorify revenge, and it's all very John Wick, right? And murder is gorgeous and fun, and you did not go that route, and I really appreciated that about you.
I think there's two things there, and thank you very much for your kind words about I Walk with Monsters. There's two things. There's firstly, in the real world, there are a lot of abused kids who are never going to get revenge. Yeah. And I wanted this to be a story where, another path is visible. And secondly, I always wonder at the end of those movies, that guy's not going to feel any better in about a day. And, it's sort of, and honestly, John, he was a dog. I watched that movie with my head tilted slightly to one side.
I saw there's a clip like there's this random comedian that pops up like when I'm mindlessly scrolling through like YouTube shorts and stuff, and he tells this story about he's I don't know what country he's from, but he's making fun of Americans, and he's like, my dad died from cancer, and my his dog, like after that, like his dog just laid by the bed and quit eating, and the dog died shortly after, and the audience is like, oh my god. And he's like, that's the problem in this country. He was like, you guys didn't give a shit about my dead dad, but the dog's what got you.
Actually, that sounds more like the British.
Yeah.
we do tend to value the lives of pets more than those of human beings.
Very, very much the same. We've had rescue dogs for years, and I've pulled a couple off the street, and we got a new one, Bruce, that we got from a rescue center who like really kind of saved our household. We lost 2 old dogs in a year, and adopted Bruce, and like he's better now, but he was nuts when we first got him. He was just a handful, and it was the distraction the family needed, right? And it's very, very cool how these relationships you make with these furry little weirdos, and what they mean to you.
I now feel like I've been unfair to John Wick, who's fictional. I mean, I do know that he's easily offended, however. So
I hear in real life, Keanu is very, very pleasant, wonderful human being. So I think you're safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting. This your new book. Well, I guess you've got 2 new books out.
But I do have 2. I have The Witches of World War II and Con and On just about the same time. Con and On is it's a tragicomic satire. Ahoy comics have this wonderful line in adult, in the best possible way, comedy. And they're up there with the classiest sitcoms. They're your Curb Your Enthusiasm of comics, in effect. And they've got lots like that. And so Con and On is in that style from 1992 to the present day, a history of a fictional comic convention. We leap ahead about 7 or 8 years with each issue.
Okay.
And we keep the same cast, except not all of them get out alive. And we see what's happened to them. And it's about the industry. It's about how it's changed in that time, and how it damn well hasn't changed in that time. It's about the dark stuff, but also the love. It's if you love a big comic convention, as I do, then that's there too. But at the same time, there's that thread of darkness that goes right through the comics industry, and that's kind of what this revolves around. There are 2 young creators just starting out in the first issue, and they will go on vastly different trajectories by the end of it. And I'm so intensely proud of this, because I'm actually using comedy to write about something that's true, and it's my experiences and those of my peers. This is all the anecdotes that pros tell each other in convention bars, and a lot of even lines that have been said to me are in this comic. And indeed, in issue 4, I think, I'm in this comic. I thought there is a harmless anecdote where I'm the butt of the joke, and I thought, I could just do that, couldn't I? I could be in it. So I am. And Marika Krester, our wonderful artist, who's great at character comedy.
Yeah.
And she's really good at atmosphere. She's drawn me really handsomely. And I said to her, you should be in it too, and I think she is. She's really good at the atmosphere of places like one of those little parks near the convention centre, whichever convention it might be, because this is all conventions. One of those little parks where the homeless and the masqueraders are there at the same time. We all know what it's like to sort of be near the big vents that are coming out with the smell of burnt human at the side of the convention. And I think it's human skin through the air conditioning. I think that's what we're smelling there. And No, I mean literally. I think that's what it is. But there's also these moments of grace and loveliness and people helping each other, and we also get into the business of we've got a regular cast that pops up in each issue, but we also visit the people who clean up, the security staff, the
cool.
people with the rickshaws, and three of our central characters are three British comics writers in the first wave of Brits in the States. And they are a dapper gentleman in a suit and tie, a cosmic explorer guy, and a wild man. And I think that covers every single British comicer. I do not think that.
Yeah, the archetypes you build in this narrative are really smart, really intelligent. I totally picked up the charm and love, and that I like how you remain positive but not afraid to critique a lot of what's going on here too, right? So there's a lot of respect paid to the comic convention, but like you're well aware of, as both an industry professional and a creator, and in the mind of Con and On, there's a lot of problems in this industry, and especially with conventions. And I like how what was cool to me was how this is like this premiere issue is kind of like when they first started bringing like the Hollywood aspect into it, and like the TV movie star phenomenon that oftentimes is sweeps up the attention of the actual like comic pros that are supposed to be the ones being celebrated at these things, right? Which has been a big critique about how it's like more of a celebration of like actors and movie stars and things like that over the actual books, which
it's not honestly a critique I share, in that there's always going to be 14 streams of comics related programming as well as the TV and movie stuff, and it's still any of the big conventions are still the biggest place for comics and books, incidentally.
Yeah.
But so I've never minded that. I think it adds to the glamour. But in 1992, when this starts, you could go to any of the major conventions and buy your ticket on the day, having queued for about 20 minutes. The idea of anybody from film or television being there is extraordinary. And one of our characters is a minor TV actor in the first issue, who is trying out this experiment. And his agent says before he goes on the panel, now, if nobody shows up, it's because it's a Comic-Con. Don't worry.
What do you think of the no, like, Marvel and Disney not doing the big like MCU preview production, this backing out of that this year?
It's a shame. It's a shame for the fans. And there's also less of a chance to randomly encounter famous people at a bar, which is one of the joys of these things. But I'm very, very much on side with the strike, or strikes now.
Yeah,
I think, and I agree with the reasoning behind this, and I've been very careful myself about only having meetings with books and comics people at the conventions I go to while the strike's on. Nice.
Yeah, it's such a bummer that there's so much money floating around and like in Hollywood and the cinematic industries, right? And how easy this fix could be, and the minor like monetary adjustment these companies would have to make these writers happy and not even happy, just like give them a livable wage, right? And how they're refusing to do it, and now some people, like, I know there's been talks of like AI generated scripts and like all this crazy stuff going on right now, and
well, we're not there yet with AI, but they clearly anticipate a time when we are, and that's what they want to do. And it's clear as day that's what they want to do, and that's pointed at the actors much harder than it is at the writers, because honestly, you could just about do it with an actor now, just about. But buy their likeness rights and run them literally like a puppet. I think that's actually what Hollywood has always wanted, and it's I'm glad we're all finally saying no.
Yeah.
And as Javier Grillo-Marxuach, the great TV writer that has lots of good stuff on his socials about this, that basically there used to be an apprenticeship system which thought for the future in terms of TV writers. You worked your way up in a room, and you learned how to be a showrunner by seeing how it was all done. And now there's nothing like that. There's no showrunner school. And it's very short-sighted of networks and streamers not to be thinking, where will the next generation of writers come from? Oh, if not inside your machines.
I had Annie Nascenti was on the live stream yesterday, and she was kind of talking about it, and she was like, it's crazy, like when they first started talking about like advanced robotics and artificial intelligence, it was like it was to like, okay, let's have these do the jobs we don't want to do, right? Like and like assembly line stuff, manual labor, things like that. And she's like, now look at what's going on. Like they want these things to make art and write movies and do all this like things that succeed on the passion of humanity, and we want a machine to take over that. And I was that's why I love doing these interviews, right? Because it's like I always think about something differently, or someone gives you like a says something and kind of like makes your brain pop for a second, and I hadn't thought of that.
I do think you would actually need proper sentience to create an actual writer. What I do think is going to be possible is that they'll get AIs to write very generic scripts, and then use that as an excuse for using non-union labor, if you like, non-writers.
Okay.
Just zhuzh that up a bit,
Okay.
And I think a lot of that might end up being what they have in mind. Plus, there's all sorts of other things they're fighting for too that are about, the future of the industry, the shape it'll be, and do we actually want in the end to be, to some degree, free? I'm glad we're having this fight now, and seeing Jerry Duggan's fiery post about it, saying, you think that a threat to starve us by Christmas is going to make us stand back from this? When, which Christmas did you have in mind? And I think this is existential for writers and actors, and we know it.
Yeah. I love the support too that we've been seeing, right? Like the live footage from the protesting and the marching and the solidarity of like big names showing up, or bringing pizza, bringing lunch, feeding these people. It's crazy how easy it is for these rich people to ignore it. Like, I guess, and I was raised Catholic, right? So Catholic guilt is still very much a thing, even though I'm not like super religious. And but it when I think about it, it's just like, how do you sleep at night? Like I feel guilty. I feel guilty when I yell at my dog for when he's like begging too hard for food or something. And it's like, even though I'm justified, I feel bad about it later. And I'm like, man, you're like toying with like the lives of creators that enrich your products, that make a better product for viewers, that generate all this income for you, and to just ignore their needs is
I just felt guilty about upsetting a fictional character. But they're about to get their worst nightmare, which is Tom Hanks on a picket line.
Yeah.
I think the really big names, especially America's sweethearts, starting to say, well, I'm just a plain old country boy, but I think this is wrong.
Yeah.
And I just read today that, incredibly, the last time the writers and the actors came out together was in 1960.
Wow.
And the leader of the strike was Ronald Reagan.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yes. Ronald Reagan, trade union firebrand.
Now, as someone who's been in some writing rooms and worked on some series and you've been a part of this, right? And so
Mhm.
I know this hits you, closer to home than some others. What, like, I mean, you've given some of your thoughts on it already, but I mean, do you see like a way out of this? Do you think they're gonna, I mean, like, I want the good guys to win, but
Yeah.
I just, in this country,
Well,
like, we've been going through some shit, man, and we're not doing a lot of things right. And it's really, really hard
mm,
to look on the bright side.
well, I don't think we can throw stones over here, but I'm sure both guilds must have stuff they're willing to give way on,
Mm-hmm.
um, because you don't enter a negotiation saying we have nothing in our hand to offer.
Yeah.
But it's basically how quickly will somebody on the other side break ranks?
Mm.
Because the networks, the streamers may think, we have content to last forever
Yeah.
already. The networks have their reality shows, but it's not just the writers and actors who need to put food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is a two-way process, and I think one of those big organisations will start agitating within the other side to say, could we at least go back to the table?
Okay.
And it's who blinks first.
Mm.
Uh,
I like that.
Yeah, I don't think the writers and the actors are going to blink.
Yeah, I don't either. I love how, like I said before, like the solidarity and the strength,
Mm.
coming out of this. And it's just, I've long thought the one bad thing about doing what I do is the more I learn about the comic book industry and how, and like, or like when you have like a favorite publisher, but then you find out, like once the recording button goes off, right, and people vent to me and tell me things that I'm like, oh my God, and I'm like, I can't believe people treat people like that. And it's, and I feel the same way about Hollywood. And it's such a bummer because the escapism and the joy that we get from all these different medias, right? And yes, it's a distraction and we sometimes consume too much of it, but
I,
it makes our lives better. Like, we
I,
need
I
these
would
people.
I would say that they're not all bad. I've worked for some genuinely good people.
Nice.
People like Chris Ryle, Ahoy in general, actually, are a very nice bunch of people and an ethical company.
Yeah.
And on the TV side, John Rogers, who makes Leverage, is perhaps an exemplar of an ethical human being. And there is a strand of good people in this industry. The trouble is, a lot of the time, that capitalism, the shape of the industries, put pressure on you to not be good, to not look after other people. I felt that. I got an invitation to Scab yesterday, and no, I'm not going to do that. What if my situation economically was a lot worse? This is the shape of the industries we are in that force people into unethical choices,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think I can, necessarily point and judge.
Yeah.
Wow, God, this got deep. Let me tell you about my other book.
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Well, light. Yeah, let's lighten it up by talking about Nazis in World War II and witches.
Witches of World War II is historical fiction from TKO, about 5 real life people who were magic users or claimed to be magic users, because we don't settle on whether or not magic is real in the book at all.
Okay.
In Britain in the Second World War. I've had them meet each other at different times earlier, usually, than they actually did. Most of them genuinely knew each other at one time or another. Alistair Crowley, Dion Fortune, and Doreen Dominy, and who is our heroine. And I've talked to a lot of people who run their foundations, British magical historians, people who actually knew them in some cases.
Oh, wow.
And so there's an awful lot of research, but it's a fun adventure. I then take them out of history and take them on that is to say, I have something that definitely didn't happen, which is I take them on an adventure into Nazi-occupied Europe at the invitation of Rudolf Hess, the Deputy Führer. And it's basically a spy game of them versus Hess. And if you like espionage and the destruction of fascism, I think you'll enjoy this book.
Sold. Done.
There's character comedy along the way. I've tried to be very, very true to all their characters, apart from Crowley, because I think he would be upset if I was true to his character, and and be upset if I wasn't, and also he played fast and loose with his history during his lifetime a lot. But ironically, several of them genuinely do seem to have had intelligence connections.
Wow.
And the central conceit of the book about Hess, there is some evidence to indicate that Crowley really did correspond with him, and you didn't get to correspond with Germans in England in World War II without the authorities knowing. I think there's definitely was something going on there. Anyway, there's also lovely supporting material in the back of the book, including a piece by Professor Ronald Hutton, indicating where the line between history and adventure is. So I really love writing proper historical fiction. It's the art by Valeria Berzo, who's an Italian artist, and she's moved on to the Hellboy universe now and is rising star. Is just gorgeous. She loves 1940s fashions, and it's full of that gorgeous 1940s period detail.
Yeah, the art is gorgeous. I looked at some previews. I didn't realize it had such an espionage aspect to it. That's exciting. I always get impressed when you all like the research you all put into stuff, and then to like add that research and juxtapose it with your own, plot points and story beats that make it your own story, that make it fiction, like to combine that and to know like when to dig your heels into history and realism, and when to kind of like step off of that and let the story go wherever it needs to go. When you're doing that, is that an organic experience, or are you like a structured nerd and you're like laying this all out real intensely?
Oh, I always work from really detailed plots. I mean, the first time I write intense plots before I start putting pen to paper about anything. Okay. And this time round, I felt a real sense of responsibility. I didn't want to do anything ridiculous with these characters. And TKO were really good about this as well. Like we had a page redrawn just to add a single line to a magical diagram.
Wow.
Because it was really upsetting some of my magical sources that it wasn't there. And because things that are meaningful to the magical community, that's the sort of thing I want to get right. I don't want somebody in one of the British magical small press magazines to say, well, he's obviously, playing fast and loose. And so it was that. Because I'm here on mission about Con and On, I'm trying to think of what else to say about it. I think that some of the stories will surprise people. There's a couple of toddlers in the first issue that we follow right through for the next 30 years.
Oh, cool.
There's an award that a big time 1950s golden age editor who turns out to have been a very bad man indeed has an award named after him, and rather wonderfully, Marika, we said to her, could you design the award because somebody gets it in issue 5, and it's a little plinth with just a halo on top of it. And the industry in 30 years doesn't care. that this guy was a serial abuser and his trophy is a halo. And Marika summed that up in a little piece of design.
Wow.
And there's also a commentary track. The last thing I do before finishing off the lettering draft in every issue, I write the commentary track to the finished art.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's a future historian who knows everything that's going to happen, who's doing a commentary track on the comic.
Nice.
And so there's an ironic distance to everything she says. Like, well, you'll recognize these two from an award-winning documentary, etc. Of course, we don't. We have no idea. But, that's something I'm quite pleased. It adds another layer to the experience.
You should be pleased, honestly. Like when I, reading the solicit, reading the press release, right, and then actually reading that first issue, the things that you accomplished just in issue 1 and the promise of what's to come, like I was actually kind of bummed it's only going to be 5 issues, right? Like I kind of want it to be longer, but I also
the
see
future then.
Yeah. I could see how this series is like possibly maybe taxing for you because like I said, to pay respect while simultaneously commentating on the problems of the industry, on the great things about the industry, while producing characters that are fun to follow and some nice cheeky humor that kind of alleviates a lot of moments and are just like sporadically very well placed throughout the premiere issue. Like, I mean, was this hard to write, or were you like, I was born for this, and like everything just kind of happened?
There was it was a bit gushing out, actually. It was a lot of the stuff I'd always wanted to say.
Do you have to reel yourself in every now and then, be like, oh, I can't, I'm going too far, maybe?
Yeah. And I also wanted to be immensely precisely fair. There's elements of one of the character stories from my own career. And I wanted to say that actually, because I think I didn't make the most of my opportunities in the big time. And he doesn't make the most of it. And a lot of it is his own fault.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I didn't want this to be, I will expose the system that threw me out. Because no, it didn't throw me out. And I don't want to do this from a place of bitterness. There's stuff in this that will surprise people. And there's a lot that's simply true. In issue 2, because I sort of break my rule, because I really wanted to see our heroine meet Jack Kirby. Mm-hmm. Only she's going off to meet Jack Kirby right at the end of issue 1, and then we leap to 8 years later. So she remembers it in issue 2. And Jack appears off stage just as a glowing presence of Kirby Crackles.
Nice.
And he is, of course, utterly lovely. Any recognizably real people in this are completely lovely. And we've also tried really hard to say, we're representing types here. There's nobody in this comic who couldn't be 6 or 7 different people.
Okay.
And and is all of those people because types recur in this industry. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're getting at.
I love everything about it. Like I said, doing this, I get a lot of insider baseball information on the industry, and it's made me connect to this narrative in a different way than I think even regular readers will. But I mean, anybody who loves comic books, anybody who goes to a convention, right? Like it's going to be so easy to get really into Con and On. I mean, and I feel like for the people that are like, yeah, this comic is for me, and that read that first issue, like I would feel like it's gonna be very hard for them to be like, no, I don't want to read the second one. Like you do so much right. Oh, you're very welcome. But what you really pulled off, what you and the artist, because the characters all, like you mentioned, emote very well, right? They like the kind of little moments of heartbreak and a lot of those excited moments where they like meet people, or at the end, when she shows her portfolio to the the sort of TV star, and like that just moment of like being seen, and how her eyes light up, right? And her physical aspects change and become so like vibrant, and they just like that emotion flies off the page, right? It was a beautiful moment, and I feel like that's like tip of the iceberg, right? Like we're gonna get way more, and probably from other sides of the spectrum too, right? Like the good and the bad. It sounds like
very much.
You guys kill it on that, and just the emotion, the raw emotion coming from this. Like I honestly I didn't expect. Like I almost thought it was going to be like a tell all and a heavy critique, you know, or like you know like Paul's had it. And he's gonna tell you how it really is. And like I said, the meticulousness and the care that you and your art team put into this, impossible to ignore, and only able to respect.
There's a lot of love in here too.
Yeah,
and you know, comics is the Wild West. It's terrifyingly unregulated, but that's good as well as bad.
Yeah, definitely. Now you're gonna be at SDCC next week, right?
Yeah. We've got an Ahoy panel, in fact.
Ooh, what panel are you doing?
Ahoy expect better. Is that what they're called? What's their slogan? Expect more.
Okay.
And actually, that's something they do really nicely, because every Ahoy comic is a little magazine. You get some prose, little features in the back as well. I really like that.
I love Ahoy, and like you mentioned earlier, you know, one of the indie publishers that has kind of stayed above some of the rockier terrain that other indie publishers are suffering. You know, both on and off the air. I've you know, creators always sing their praises. You know, Mark Russell's been on the show a few times, and because he keeps doing books with them. I made a joke. I was like, I asked him, I was like, any truth to the rumors of Ahoy Comics changing their name to Mark Russell's Ahoy Comics? He just like stared at me through the screen. I was like, I was kidding. No, but everybody loves them, and like Tom Payer is amazing. He's just so cool. Man. Yeah. And so like, and so I feel like this book has found like the absolute best home it could have found, right?
Possibly the only home, honestly. I mean, who else is doing dark comedy? But no, I love them. They treat us fairly. You know, nice. They can't always afford to do something, but at the same time, they tell you that up front, and the deals are fair, and the editorial process is good. So honestly, you couldn't ask for more, especially in this climate.
That's good. I'm glad that, you know, because I mean you've been around the block, sir. You've been doing things in this industry for many years, you know, and it's not, you know, especially for these creator-owned projects that are, you know, tied a little more closely into your heartstrings, and you know, more it's your baby, it's your little baby, and you know, so to have like you and your product taken care of and respected, you know, like I wish more indie creators had that experience, you know, but I'm glad you're there.
I do sometimes think I should start telling the lie that there was another earlier Paul Cornell, and who just happened to have the same name, and he was also a writer in comics and television, and I'm a lot younger than
No, it's interesting, you know, like watching, you know, like I mentioned, like I stumbled across you with that new Wolverine run. That was like, I mean, any comic book shop you walked into had that new Wolverine poster. We all knew he was losing his healing factor. We didn't know he was going to die right after your run ended, right? I didn't know Charles Soule was just going to come in and pour hot adamantium all over him, and like, but you know, again, like, I know a lot of people critiqued that, but I really did love that. I love Wolverine so much. Like, and
I thought we would get years of stories out of him being killable, and of course, I sort of opened my own trapdoor. Right? Of course, they're going to kill him. Of course.
Did you know that when you started the run? Like, were they like, take his powers away for a few months so we could just kill him?
No.
Oh wow.
I was absolutely of the opinion that we would be going with that for years. Not necessarily with me, but as a status quo.
Okay.
And my wife said to me, "You cancelled your own comic."
Too soon, babe. Like, I don't need that right now.
But,
Sorry.
yeah, no, I, I don't regard Wolverine. Some of it is I'm proud of, but I think largely it's not my best work, because learning on the fly about having to. I tried to say at the start, every other book which is a solo character, that's where you go for big things happening to that character.
Mm-hmm.
The X-Men characters, because historically the X-Men came first and then they got their solo books.
Yeah.
You tend to go to the team book for big things happening in their life.
Oh, yeah.
Which give their solo books a strange feeling of being spin-offs, where nothing important really happens. And I said at the start, could we have it so that this is where the important stuff happens, and that be reflected? And I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but very few other books reflected the status quo in Wolverine. And Greg Pak did, bless him. I was pleased with him for that. He's a great guy. And but you kind of after a while had the feeling of, well, we're out on our own little promontory of continuity here, aren't we? And also things kept changing behind the scenes. I think I had 5-6 editors across the run.
Oh, wow.
And it was very choppy, and what I could and couldn't use kept changing. And this is just life in one of the big universes.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. This is just how it is. And I'm saying I didn't respond well enough to that. I didn't surf it well enough. And also I should have had a plan that was adaptable enough to deal with it.
Oh.
And anyway, so my plan didn't really end up happening. And there were all sorts of things in there that I think are left dangling. But there are moments I like. I got very ground down by it, and I really should have left after a year. I should have known when to stop, because I was exhausted after a while. So I got to work with some great people on it. And I got to reunite with Pete Woods, who I work with on Action Comics, who's always one of my favourite artists.
Nice.
And towards the end, when they knew it was coming to an end, they just said, "Who do you want?" I said, "Pete Woods," and they said, "Sure."
Oh, cool.
And I got to write a Black Panther issue I was still really proud of, where he and Wolverine basically just play a strategic game against each other for the whole issue, and that as a one and done I'm quite proud of. Marvel Unlimited featured it as one of their best Panther issues, and
wow, cool.
Yeah. But so I always hesitate to be critical of my own work in front of somebody who liked it, because this can come perilously close to feeling that you shouldn't have liked it and you were wrong to. And that's not what I'm saying.
It wouldn't be the first time someone told me that. Like one of my good friends told me, he asked me one time, he was like, "How do you review things? You like everything?" And I was like, "No, there are a lot of things I don't like, but I don't like being negative. I've very much worked hard to build my brand on being a positive voice in the industry, and I don't want to be the guy that people look to like watch me trash a comic, right? I don't want that kind of attention. So yeah, when I review stuff or cover things, I'm passionate about it. I'm excited about it. Like these are real emotions, and so yeah, it's I think not covering stuff that's not worth covering says stuff too, right?
I am delighted that you had a good experience with it, and I've seen a couple of other good reviews recently, so that's nice. But I may reread it one day and decide there is, I've done worse. I've done better. My favourite runs, I think, are Action Comics and Captain Britain.
Okay.
all with a side order of Demon Knights and Knight and Squire. Anyway.
Yeah, I forgot you wrote Etrian for New 52. That's right. That's right. And another deal that like got when New 52 was coming out, I felt like it was heavily critiqued, and now that people are going back to it now and
Oh,
experiencing like a lot of these runs, and they're
DC,
praising them.
DC have done something really smart and folded it into continuity rather than deciding none of it happened.
Yeah.
I believe the status quo at DC now is that everything happened
Mm-hmm.
from all universes, and I that's pleasing. For a while there, all of us on the New 52 thought we were going to be just erased,
Mm-hmm.
and there's the nice thing about Demon Knights is that it's basically self-contained. There's continuity that stretches ahead of it, but because we were starting a new universe, it's not in thrall to much.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the artwork. I love that we told a proper fantasy story. And
How much do you hate rhyming, or do you love it?
Well, there's meant to be a rule that the rhyming goes with Etrigum's rank. That
Okay.
being a rhyming demon is a rank he holds, and he doesn't have to rhyme. He does that deliberately to hold on to his rank. So I did have sections where he was not a rhyming demon anymore, but no, I mean I think it's one of those things you have to do with a character. Basically, you have to do the rhymes. And I miss Vandal Savage. I miss writing certain characters. I miss Pete Wisdom. I miss Vandal Savage as Brian Blessed. and but
Now, like the reason why I brought up Wolverine again and now talking about your DC work is it's you're more creator owned independent side these days. Now is that like if they offered you a job, like would you want to go back, or are you happy in the indie world with dealing with your own creations and different kinds of deadlines and editorial and stuff like that?
No, I'm happy in the indie world, but yeah, I'd go back. I'd go back for the right characters.
Okay.
There are all sorts of characters in those two universes that I really adore and really want to work for. I am writing for them again.
Nice.
In the sense, in that I've just novelized the comic Secret Invasion, not the TV
cool.
show, but the comic, and it's coming out in September from Titan.
Nice.
And I got to write new Pete Wisdom dialogue because my Captain Britain run is part of, because we don't just do the Central Spine miniseries, we do a lot of the spin-offs series as well.
Okay.
And so I deliberately angled it, so I got to write new stuff for my Captain Britain and MI13 crowd.
That's so cool. I am very interested in these prose adaptations that a lot of y'all do. And now there's even like a lot of X-Men novelizations that are like fresh stories that aren't adaptations, just brand new, all prose comics. What's it like, when you're used to working with an artist? Okay.
I was always a prose writer first,
okay.
And that's where I come from. And what I really loved about this was the editorial process. A chap called Daniel Carpenter at Titan, who's as big a nerd and who has huge Marvel chops. And we sent it to a few other people as well who have huge Marvel chops. And basically the sheer number of Easter eggs that we've put in here that people go, oh, that's because of that. And every now and then he'd go, there's an opportunity to fit another one in just this place here. Like when they go, oh, why didn't they threaten us with something worse? Like, and we could put a few of the things in the Marvel universe that you could threaten the planet with here.
Mm-hmm.
There's stuff like that. And, it's a really good moment in Marvel history. It's a really good story.
Yeah.
And I managed to find a good beginning point and actually a good end point to make it feel like one story.
Cool.
And I kept going a little while after the story in the comics ends to get to a good place of resolution. And because I get to be inside all the Skrulls' heads and do stuff from their point of view, I got to write Skrull Jarvis, because they take on they take on the personalities to some extent of whoever they're copying. And so Skrull Jarvis goes around going, "Well, humans seem to be resisting. It's very tiresome. Did you really have to?" So,
that's cool. That's so exciting. So I'm rereading it, right? I've read the main series before from Bendis, right? But I never read the tie-ins, and so I'm reading it with like all the tie-in. Like there's so many tie-ins, but the tie-ins are actually real. Like they're good. They're very, very good, and they flesh out so much of the story. And so I had this plan, right? And I was like, ooh, I'm gonna reread this and like do some write-ups about the new Disney series, and like this will give me content for the Substack. And then then I find out that like they purposefully like strayed away from almost everything. They even like told some of the writers like, don't read the comic, just write. And I was like, man, what the hell am I going to write about now? They're like two different animals.
I think the Black Panther tie-ins are great, and the Thor ones, and and Hercules going to fight the Skrull gods. That's genius.
Yeah.
I think the chapters in the book told from Thor's point of view are all in the rhythms of Beowulf.
Oh, wow.
So it is entirely poetic language talked of in the Edda. He came fiercely and fighting, and and I hope I don't get on people's nerves after a while with that, but it really adds something. And like Beowulf, his first chapter in narration begins with him shouting, "Listen!" And so yes. I'm really proud.
This sounds so cool, dude. Oh my God. This sounds so cool. Is it hard as a prose writer when you're writing something like that to constantly jump between points of view from alien to human to superhero? And
well, what I do is, and this is something I do in my prose as well, I adopt a useful different point of view for each chapter.
Okay.
So you do get a little break. You don't.
Okay.
You don't go from paragraph to paragraph changing.
Okay.
Changing point of
view. So it's structured a little bit easier for you, and you get to spend a little more time with everybody, it sounds like. Okay.
And Tony Stark's abiding arseholery through the whole book is terrific. He basically starts feeling that everybody else is wrong and he should be in charge. And that's where he ends. As well. He doesn't learn anything from all of Secret Invasion.
That's what you said. That comes out in September?
It does.
That's super cool. I'm very stoked for that. Listening to you talk about whether indie comics are big too or whatever your endeavors were in this industry, right? I hear the passion in you, and it's infectious, right? Like I get it. Like I'm getting excited about stuff too. Which going back to Con and On is why it's so good. You're just a big happy nerd, and I love that. And you're putting that vibe out there for so many people to experience in a new way.
I really am just a big happy nerd. I think this is something a lot of comica share. That I was with Dan Slott the other day at a convention, and he broke off his signing line to run across the floor to get his photo taken with Sylvester McCoy and then run back to get into the signing line. Con and On is sort of it is my love letter as well as they broke Paul. They didn't break Paul. It's my love letter and my critique. Because I think comics could be better, and I think it will be better one day. But I should mention Saucer Country as well. We're finishing it. It's out from Zoop, probably early next year, maybe late this year.
Oh, wow.
Because we're doing a completed edition. We crowdfunded it. It's done, with everything of Saucer Country and Saucer State from Vertigo and IDW, plus a new ending that finishes the story. So in one complete volume, you'll have everything, including
Wow.
an actual ending. And for those people who've loyally bought everything so far, we didn't want to rip them off, so we're publishing the ending separately as a separate comic as well. So you can just buy the ending if you've already got everything. Ryan Kelly's delivered all the art. It's all been colored. We are literally just waiting for the lettering, and then the designer can get to work. And so our backers will be getting that ASAP.
Ooh, that's exciting. That was a good campaign. I remember that. I remember that campaign running. I like Zoop a lot. I do a lot of work with Kickstarter people. I do a lot of PR stuff now, and help help crowdfunder creators I make silly little ads and videos, and I've somehow managed to make that a job, which is awesome.
That's good.
Yeah. So I get paid now to hype comics, which I never thought would be a thing, right? And which is why we got to do this interview, right? Because I don't have my day job is flexible now, and I could say like, yeah, let's do, because we started at 9 a.m. my time, but it's I love the crowdfunding environment. It's so exciting, and I hear a lot of good things about Zoop. I hear like from a creator standpoint, like how they work with you guys, and kind of like think about your needs and how to make the project better, like for Paul specifically, right? Like did you kind of get the same vibes from them?
Yeah, very much so. They've even got 2 shipping centers, one in Britain, one in the States. So,
oh, cool.
To some degree, I think we cut it off after a certain point. British buyers get to pay only British shipping, which often makes a big difference in Kickstarter.
Oh, projects. Yeah.
They are very, very good at what they do, and it was my first time crowdfunding a project, and I'm really pleased with the results. Ryan, who's one of the great artists, oh my goodness, seeing new pages of Saucer Country from him, it's so good. Just somebody who my heart goes out to. He's worked so hard, and the industry has not always treated him kindly, and he should be much more well regarded than he is.
Like I mentioned before, like the more I find out sometimes is the blessing and the curse scenario. But it is a bummer how some people, they love comic books so much, they love storytelling so much, and occasionally they get taken advantage of, or don't find the respect that they deserve. Which, I mean, that's not just comics, that's just life. Life fucking sucks like that sometimes. But it's still when like artistic endeavors are involved in these like passion it hits a little bit differently, right? Than just like I walked outside and stepped in dog poop barefoot, and like, why does the universe hate me or whatever? It's different than that kind of like universal downpour of crap that hits you every now and then.
It is standing trying to include some light. Yes.
What kind of crowdfunder were you? Like, were you constantly like refreshing the page, looking at the numbers, or were you able to kind of separate yourself from it a little bit?
I was terrified. I mean, luckily I know people who've successfully crowdfunded before who were able to say it'll whiz up at the start, and then it'll just
and it does
stop.
nothing.
And then there's nothing for a long time, and then it'll start moving again. It'll get there before the end.
Yeah.
And phew.
Yeah, it's weird. You run these month campaigns, and then there's like a week and a half of actual like needle moving, right? Yeah. And then it's like that mid waiting game. And I know you did some interviews. You were on my buddy Keeping It Geekly. What you did an interview about Saucer, and so I know like that kind of distracts you too, but you guys got to do a lot of your own PR, right? So like you're hitting the podcast circuits, you're putting all this work in, and you got to talk to weirdos like me, and then the episode comes out, and then you're like, no, It didn't do anything.
The extra skill sets you have to have these days.
Yeah.
The other day, I made a graphic for myself of where I'm going to be at San Diego Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it up and I looked at it and I thought, it's not good, Paul. You have no graphic design skills. You never thought this would be a thing. And Kevin Scott, rather wonderfully, just sort of patted me on the shoulder and said, Paul, here's one I made for you. You just, and it was like, oh, that's so much better. Thank you, Kath. Oh.
That's funny. I do the same thing. Like my graphic design work and the promo art I do, like it was all very much like self-taught, and it was a skill that I didn't know I would need, right? But when you start when you start podcasting, or if you make a YouTube video, you got to make a cover photo, and the cover photo needs to look kind of cool. And now, of course, like when I make ads for clients, Kickstarter books and stuff, like I gotta when I found I'm clever enough that I can like erase the words in their bubbles and redo the dialogue into like an advertisement. Clients seem to like that. But yeah,
I can't do that. But I should say I'm also a podcaster. I run with Elizabeth Miles, my co-host, the Hammer House of Podcast. We are watching all the Hammer horror movies in UK release order.
Oh wow!
We are 5 years into this, and we've got 8 left.
Whoa! Oh, so you're a horror nerd too?
Well, I'm an old horror nerd. I like horror that's old enough so that all the horror has been drained out of it. Liz is a full-on horror fan.
Okay.
And my wussiness is a source of constant delight to her.
Oh, that's cool. So okay, so you're a man of many talents. Like you're a podcaster, a novelist, a prose writer, a comic writer.
Not a graphic designer.
What other secret talents do you have?
Ooh, do you know that this is probably it? I can cook a bit.
Okay. Okay.
I play cricket badly, but playing it at all might be seen as a talent. Oh, I buy the right presents for people.
That's a good talent.
Yeah.
That's a good talent.
That's my second talent on my D&D list of skills, and that's it. That's as far down as the skill list goes.
Well, yet again, you've proved that you're just a generally good guy, and that makes good present buying, because it's funny, to buy a good present you have to be present. You have to like really know somebody and listen and be active in the moments with your friends and your family or your partner, or you have to pay a lot of attention, and it's sad that like so many people don't. Like I thrive off communication. Obviously, as you can tell, like I have a problem shutting up, and I will just keep talking and talking forever. But it's so weird that so many people, don't want to do that. Like they don't want to, even their friends or close ones or lovers, they like don't want to listen to them. And it's like, why?
I think I get this because my elder brother was a terrible present buyer, and there were frequent Christmases growing up where I would look at him and go, no, what's the real present?
Oh no.
He once bought me as a 10-year-old a rough wooden box. And I was like, I opened it up, and he went, but no, the present is the box.
Oh wow. Yeah, I've never been given an empty box before.
It's not like he's 14. He was 20 something at that point.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. Well, Paul, I've kept you over an hour, man. You're just an absolute gem to talk to. I could keep going, man. You're so easy to talk to, so freaking charming. I love it.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to remind people, when you guys get this, Con and On will already be out. It's ready for you at a shop, and I really, really encourage you to go and snag a copy and experience this, and also, dare I say, I know no one's going to listen to me because I don't know why no one likes to pre-order comics, but pre-order the next issue. Put it on your pull list. Tell your shops you want this book. It really it helps Paul. It helps the shop. It helps Ahoy. it helps everybody. And I do think these are 5 issues you don't want to miss.
You always get on social media people going, oh, hey, I walked into the comic shop and your comic was sold out. Isn't that great? I'm like, no, because you didn't order it. And they had 2 copies and they've both gone.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, yeah, selling out is nice, especially if there's like, sequential printings and stuff, right? But like you said, you want people to be able to buy this book, yes. Especially this book. I feel like this book is very special and important to you.
Yeah.
And like you really want to get this out. And after reading the first issue, like I can't recommend it enough for my audience. Anybody who loves comics, anybody who's ever gone to a convention, had a good time. Comic professionals, which if you look, I think every who's who in comics has given you quite the absolutely like charming, masterful pull quote. Like you have so many pull quotes from so many great people on this book. So it's very cool to see your peers celebrating your win here as well.
That was very, very nice. I went and shook some trees, it must be said, but they didn't have to be so kind. It was very lovely.
Now, Paul, the polite podcast host that I am, where's, for people to want to follow you, keep track of you, do you have like a website or a newsletter? Like how do we keep track of all this cool stuff you got coming out?
If you go to paulcornell.com, that's where everything is. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Substack. I have my regular Friday newsletter, nice. Where I have a fiction serial that comes out every Thursday on Substack as well. Night of the Gnomes, my Cotswold fantasy. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Blue Sky, and that's it.
Nice. Hey, the sky's bluer. And not as toxic. Well, it was till like yesterday. I guess some weird stuff's happening on Blue Sky now too.
There's always teething troubles.
There's assholes everywhere, man. You just can't get rid of them, unfortunately. And then I mentioned that the other day. Like it really sucks that so many of us. I love social media and connecting with people anyway, right? But there are times where I'm like, I wish I could take a break. Unfortunately, for what I do, I have to be constantly present on social media, especially for my other job, which is a social media manager for Metal Ninja Studios, which is a company that helps indie creators make books. And so you can't be a social media manager and take a break from social media. But it's a bummer that like, I get whatever free speech argument you want to say, like, I don't buy into that. That's not what free speech was intended for. Yeah. And this belief that like, well, you should just have to deal with bigotry because it's just there and it's like, I'm done with it, man. Like, I don't understand why we can't filter this shit out. Why, even on someone posted on that Donald Trump truth.com or whatever, that other social media platform, you can't say slurs on that. If you do, it'll warn you when you try to post it. It'll be like, you can't say this. And so like the platform of Donald Trump won't let you say derogatory slurs, but then Blue Sky's like, oh, whoops, we messed that one up and missed it. So yeah, I don't know, man. You can definitely filter these things out. It's just,
this has always been the way for humanity, that you don't invite people who you existentially disagree with to your dinner parties for a robust debate. You just don't. It's cancel culture has been present throughout the entire history of humanity. It is in fact just what people do all the time. Mm-hmm. But, anyway, on that note.
We've gone from like laughing jokes, happy memories, and then to spiraling into weird darkness. This has been an emotional episode, which I knew it would be, because like when we started and I told you like one of your books is going to forever be like a real good memory between me and my dad, even though you don't like your own book, but that's fine. I loved it.
But no, I love that you have that memory, and thank you very much for having me. And it's been a pleasure.
Oh yeah, dude, same. Best of luck with the continuation of Con and On, because it is all the magic that comic books is in every panel of that book, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It is so good. It is so pure. you learn so much, even with it, even with it being mostly fiction, right, based in truth. But I just love it, and it was an honor to get to talk to you. I really respect you as a writer, and love what you're doing, and you're just good people, man. It was a fun chat.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back later for something else. Love more, hate less, read comics. You know how we do it. Live by it, die by it, just like the sword. I'll be back later with other awesome guests. Paul will be back later with other awesome books, especially in September for that Secret Invasion novelization. Very, very stoked for that. And Paul, thank you again, man, for spending part of your day with me. I know you guys are busy with your deadlines and stuff, and it always means the world when you give me the time of day. I love it, and I love chatting with writers. It's just and artists, but it's so fun to listen to you guys talk about what you're passionate about.